Hello and welcome to episode number 318. This is the Project Management Podcast at pm-podcast.com and I'm Cornelius Fichtner. Welcome back. Have you ever had an urgent or unexpected project come across your desk? Not just an important project, but an urgent one. If your answer is yes, I have managed urgent projects, then you are actually in the minority because most of us will probably never have to manage such a project. Stephen Wynn explains this in his book, Managing the Urgent and Unexpected, as follows. Urgent and unexpected projects have to be rare in business or government to be economically and socially tolerable. Any such urgent and unexpected work demands an instant start, in contrast to the often lengthy process of investigation, evaluation, development, selection, and planning that is normal in business and public services before any proposed work is started. Therefore, the chance that any one person, except those in emergency services, will ever manage such a project is small. This episode of the Project Management Podcast is sponsored by the Agile Prepcast. Are you PMP certified and want to earn 37 PDUs quickly and for less than $5 per hour? That's no problem with the Agile Prepcast. It not only prepares you for your PMI ACP exam, but also qualifies for a ton of PMP PDUs. Visit agileprepcast.com/PDU for the details. Stephen Wynn then continues in his book by saying something that I disagree with just a little bit. He says that it's not possible to know who should learn the lessons learned from these urgent and unexpected projects in order to be prepared. In my opinion, I know exactly who should learn from them. We project managers should. And that's why I have asked him to come onto the program. And now, make it fast, make it urgent. Enjoy the interview.
The Project Management Podcast's feature interview.
Today with Professor Stephen Wynn, author and project engineer on hydro and nuclear power projects.
Hello, Stephen. Welcome to the Project Management Podcast.
Hello.
What would you say that our listeners are going to get out of our conversation today? A takeaway that they can use on their own project based on your book, Managing the Urgent and Unexpected?
I guess about 3 levels of things. One is how to use the word urgent or how to question the perhaps overuse of the word urgent. I reflect on how many times I've probably said to somebody, it's urgent, please get on with it. I reflect that if I'd said it's not urgent, they'd never do it at all. So it's pretty easy to use the word. So one of the things I think we learned from looking at the specific cases is that urgent could mean something over and above fast track. So that you could say there are normal projects where you proceed economically, wary of cost, conscious of time, care about safety. Then there are fast-track projects which you have perhaps good reason to spend money faster. But over and above that, the instances, the cases I looked at were where there was a real reason for going as fast as is safe, as fast as is practicable. So it was distinguishing firstly then between spending at a normal speed, spending fast for a good reason, and really proceeding as fast as possible with costs not being really a control. A long answer, but that I think was a very big learning point.
Absolutely. So let's then start out with the definition.
Okay.
How do you define the urgent and unexpected work that you explore in the book?
I suppose I could go back to being a contractor, nuclear power long ago, and say that the pressure was to use your resources continuously. As a supplier, the economic thing was to have the capacity to do the job, but to make sure that capacity was always earning money. I'd then say that that's not the interest often of your customer. to them an earlier delivery is worth a bit more money. So what I'm then adding to that is that you can pay to go even faster, and you can get to the point where you go as fast as is physically safe. Does that answer your point?
It does. It does. As a start, let's see how this differs from normal work then.
Normal, I think, always means two different things to the supplier contractor and the customer. The supplier, as I was trying to say, wants to do things at minimum cost, and that's often not exactly at the same speed of delivery as a customer. I think that's a common dilemma in any, certainly engineering and construction work, IT projects. But I'm saying there is an extreme condition when you want to go as fast as is physically possible. But the test is, does urgent mean that cost does not actually influence the decision to do the work? That is the big question. You say it's urgent. Can I spend as much as it takes to deliver it as fast as is safe? That's the learning point that I think was learnt painfully in some of our cases.
Why is that an important point, that the money shouldn't matter?
Only because it's a question of interpreting what somebody means by a word like urgent. I may think it's urgent because it's important to me, or because we're losing a market, because somebody is leaving at the end of the month and they're the resource I must have on the job before they go. It doesn't follow that the cost of doing that is what somebody else agrees was worth doing.
All right, I get it. So let me see if I understood this correctly. So an urgent and unexpected project, somebody decides it's urgent and unexpected, and then really the litmus test to figure out, is it really urgent and unexpected, means let's take a look at the cost. Are we willing to pay the cost for this urgent and unexpected work at, whatever it costs?
Yes.
Okay.
Now that's
Go ahead.
I'm going back to a view of mine as a former project manager. The most important bit of thinking is the first day you're given the project. Questioning, do they really want that? Is that a trade-off? Have we thought through this, that, and the other? And this is part of that. If somebody says this job is urgent, then there comes out the word, this job is priority. Okay, I think often somebody says, yes, it's priority today, but tomorrow, no, another job is priority. So what do we mean by priority? What do we mean by urgent? It means the project managers, I think, has a very difficult task sometimes in actually managing his own managers, his bosses, who tell him, here's the project, here's the schedule, here's the budget, but it's super urgent, challenging them as to what they meant by words like urgent. Do you mean I do it at the speed that suits the contractor? Do I do it at the speed that suits some interpretation of urgent?
What about these urgent and unexpected projects? What are the chances that a large portion of our listeners are going to have to manage a really urgent and unexpected project that comes up?
Probably very small. But if their organization hasn't thought through how to deal with incidents of any sort, whether it be a major problem in an existing project, a major problem on plant, a small problem on a project, they haven't thought how to deal with the unexpected, which is urgent. Whether it's a project or not, they may find themselves less able to move as fast and as economically as they want. Incident management systems are talked about quite a lot in business continuity planning for disasters, and it's exactly the same situation. The unexpected has hit you. You have to make a decision, political, business decision. We've got to move fast to grab this opportunity, to rectify this disaster, to take advantage of whatever it may be that is unexpected and is also, if we're to gain advantage or to survive, we deem as urgent. the chances of perhaps doing a whole project like that are pretty small. But I have a view as I've thought through these projects that all project management is really, well, not all of it, but it's essentially a task of being able to manage a surprise. Call it a design change, call it a bankrupt supplier, call it a change in safety law, whatever it may be. You are all the time really managing surprises in executing what you planned for, you budgeted for, you prepared the team for. So an urgent, unexpected project is just a very big surprise. But within your experience, there's probably quite an awful lot of little surprises. Which of us has
Okay.
managed a project without having a surprise? If we didn't, we're almost redundant. The machinery can run the project if everything happens as we planned it.
So, in a sense, you're saying that all projects that we have, in a sense, are a bit urgent, are a bit unexpected. But the really, really big, urgent, and unexpected projects, those only come up very rarely. And we as project managers may not even see one of those really big and urgent ones that are the big surprise. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. So, what can we do today in our organizations to then prepare for this kind of really big surprise and project? What can we do today?
The folks who look at resilience argue you need resilience at all levels to deal with the unexpected, the surprise, whatever. It seems to me what you can do to prepare for the big one is to learn from the small ones. But here I'm getting into territory I've not explored. I've observed in retrospect 12 and more unexpected urgent projects, get conclusions from them that the ones who had incident management principles established in their organization were able to respond very effectively because they could see they were in the condition of an unexpected incident. They understood there had to be virtually a temporary project team working for the sort of corporate management, but devoted to the particular situation. So some organizations were prepared for surprise incidents and benefited. Others perhaps could have learned from small ones and realized there was a need to agree the idea that an unexpected surprise, urgent, is a sort of sub-project within a project, and seeing how to manage that, seeing it through, learning lessons, is actually a good learning for the whole organizations to be able to deal with a total surprise, an unexpected, urgent project.
Who is responsible for this preparation? Is it just us project managers, or are we talking about some kind of a disaster management department in the organization?
I think neither of those. It's a corporate thing. Of course, when it's always easy to say the corporation should do this, that, and the other, but it's in like business continuity. The organization needs to think what it would do if it loses all its data or half the board members in a plane or something. It has to have a business continuity, fallback for data, fallback for roles, fallback for resources, and so on. There's a lot of arguments, a lot of papers, recommendations, US ones, UK ones, I'm sure over the world, about being prepared for the unexpected. It always comes down to the corporation saying, well, if in principle a level of unexpectedness occurred, then the chief executive has got to decide at what level to switch on the incident management system. All of that is fairly well established in the sort of emergency literature, but it's thought of as a totally different world to a surprise business opportunity. What we had a chance to do was to look at 2 or 3 business opportunities, positive things, and emergencies in process and emergencies being recovered from, and came to the view that there's a common element, and that's the ability to visualize and act on a surprise, constructive or destructive. It's the same requirement to be able to perceive answer those simple sort of questions. What is this? Why is it? What matters? Who matters? How can we do it? How are we doing? So what I'm trying to argue is that the urgent, unexpected type of situation is one where those who are used to disasters can teach those who are used to surprise business opportunities, and vice versa. They're all part of the same thing, and they're the thing that really needs a brain that's distinct from planning and rules and procedures. They're needing the ability to say, we've got to concentrate on that for this reason, in that way, at that speed, at that cost. Sorry, I give long answers.
No. This is good. I have to tell you, I have worked on the other side. I have worked in a business continuity department
Right.
myself a little while ago, and so I'm aware of what you do. The one thing that I've always felt extremely surprised is how little value our co-workers actually placed on the work that we did. Because if you're working in a disaster recovery environment, you really hope that all the work you do is never going to be
Exactly,
used.
yeah.
Yet, it has to be practiced. And whenever we had a disaster recovery event, which it was usually taking a whole day, everybody was shaking their heads and moaning, oh, do we really have to do this? I have real work to do. I don't want to do this. And it was really a hassle getting people to think about potential disasters coming up. Is this something that you found as well?
I've not seen that firsthand, but it's a frequent comment that disasters are things which happen to other people.
Yes.
But I mean, once you've been near one, and the nearest I have was being a guest of your government, I think February 2002, talking through lessons learned from the 9/11 pile work, was that even the most polished of the business recovery plans of the companies in the towers still had something they hadn't perceived that they would lose. That you need, I suppose, to take people through specific situations for them to realize, yeah, we would need that. We need to think about how we would deal with it if it occurred. Most of us have not seen somebody drowning, and we don't know how well we'd cope until we got there. And yet we do learn to swim because it might be required.
So the book is called Managing the Urgent and Unexpected. It's written by yourself, Stephen Wynn, and your co-author, Keith White-Hunt.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to write that book? What was the underlying reason?
It goes back a long way to being interested in projects, having worked on them, being recruited into higher education to bring in the experience of engineering and project management. Just 50 years ago, we started our project management research and teaching at Manchester, being aware that, on the one hand, I had a good credibility of having managed or been involved in hydro and nuclear power projects. On the other hand, getting dated because I was no longer living through the problems and the opportunities. So starting to teach and develop research, and then realizing we had a tendency to be prescriptive, teachers do, and we had a tendency to have our answers to situations. It was a time when, for instance, you either used the critical path network or you didn't. That the world of projects polarized into those who did and didn't. I started getting interested in surprise and things that had gone wrong out of a feeling that we ought to look at a variety of projects, not just the ones that people tended to report. We were getting speakers about how they ran successful projects, good, not necessarily independent views, but interesting always. And we were certainly getting investigations and occasionally getting involved with projects were in trouble. But in between those, there's a vast sort of area of projects that are going well enough. You don't learn much from. Since we were getting mainly opportunities to learn from successes, I started getting involved in why do projects go wrong? Well, lots of people have done that as well. What interested me was why some of the emergency ones actually went very well. So going on from a concern about extreme or negative or failure situations, getting interest in, access to, conversations about projects where they were dealing with an emergency, rectifying things after an emergency, and then later on a business opportunity, saying that what is it about these which are different to the prescriptive, normal, sort of textbook stuff? Because I got to the view that most textbooks are rather like the navigation books in Portugal in about the year 1500. They were based on the assumption the world is flat because nobody had gone very far beyond their experience and fallen off. Nobody had fallen off the edge yet.
Yes, so it must be flat.
Yeah, it must be flat. So it was an interest in, okay, we want to learn from normal successful projects. What can we learn from abnormal successful projects?
So let me make sure I understand this correctly. Are you saying that in your research you have found that urgent and unexpected projects that were started, not in the normal business or sort of an abnormal project, that they have a greater success rate than projects which are just part of the normal business process that's going on?
No, we don't know that in any sense
Okay.
of coverage of the field. I got access for various ways indirectly after the event to urgent and unexpected projects that had gone well, but I've not come across reports of people who started urgent, unexpected projects and did not succeed in delivering them. So there may be quite a lot of experience of starting them and not succeeding, which we've not been able to tap into.
Okay. What's your own personal experience like? So, what was your first urgent and unexpected work that you had to do? And what would you do differently if the same thing came up again today?
Good questions. Early on a hydropower project, I was trained as an engineer in a factory, ended up with working on a team for a hydropower project in Scotland, fairly well advanced in design. Typical hydro dam, pipeline, turbine system out back into the river. Late, the customer, this is in Scotland, tourist area, decides they want the whole powerhouse underground. Dam is nearly built, the tunnel's nearly driven, the tail end is engineered. So we've got to switch the whole thing half a mile upstream, so to speak, into good, solid Scottish rock and still be on time, you hope.
Yeah, that's a rather unexpected request.
It's an
I
unexpected
can see.
request. My particular remit was to just look at the hydraulic behavior, but that's not unusual during projects to get a substantial change of that sort. But when you're on the critical path and you've half built, then I think you can say that was urgent and it was certainly unexpected. As one instance, I've got a totally different one, which is probably as typical for many people. I was project engineer for the first British nuclear power station in Japan, built, of course, with a lot of the work being done by the very competent Japanese companies. We shipped out 1,000 tons or so of very special steel for the main containment vessel. On bending it on site, they found it was imperfect. So we have a sudden need to replace 1,000 tons of special steel way down the critical path for supplying it, cutting it, bending it. That's a thing, again, I think is pretty typical of urgent, unexpected work during a project.
And so what would be the difference in your personal approach to these situations today?
I think two different ones. Of the hydropower go underground, you're response as the people delivering the project is that there's little you can do if a customer, for PR, for good public relations, for any other reason, wants to make such a change. That is their choice in their business. It could have been done, of course, more cheaply in the beginning, but values, public values, the value of the PR had changed. I don't think the engineering team appointed to plan and deliver one could budget or reasonably anticipate a change beyond the customer's market control. The steel replacement during the project. Yes, in your budgeting and in your planning, you talk things like contingencies. If you're bidding for the project, as we were, your management tends not to want to allow much for those contingencies because they want the price that gets the work. So when you're doing the pre-planning, as I did on another job, you're not going to be able to build in allowances for a major component failing that's on the critical path of delivery of the project. But I think you are probably going to have to, as the project engineer, the one who should be above all foreseeing what may happen, what might happen, you should be thinking in terms of contingencies for potential events up to some level. Not add a percentage onto your estimates. That's what gets cut out. But say to them, if the building is destroyed and we lose our data, I want the money to have this to do that. Then if somebody says, no, we can't afford it, we know they're making a specific reduction in your provisions for contingencies. But that one, I think that steel one in that nuclear vessel is about at the limit where any contractor could be expected to have priced in for the rejection of a special supply somewhere down their supply chain. What do you learn? That you cannot afford to be in that sort of business if you've only got one or two contracts. And you have to ride that one if it comes up on that contract. Sorry, not a long answer.
Very well, very well. In closing, what would you recommend are the 3 best practices that you would like our listeners to take away and use in the future when they come across urgent and unexpected work, or even urgent and unexpected projects?
Go to the word we haven't used. I wouldn't put this top, but it's one I realize we haven't used. The word unexpected. Do not spend time arguing it should have been expected, because if it wasn't, that's where you are. In other words, at the beginning of any pressurized situation, avoid blame. That's a rule, I think, for project management anyway. What I'd put top is where we started. If somebody says it's urgent, you do some arithmetic and say, I can deliver it in 6 months for that much, do it in 5 months for that much, but I can do it in 3.5 months for that much, and that's the fastest it can be done safely. Some notional figure of cost probably has more influence as numbers than any care to say, what do I mean by urgent as a descriptive term? Try to put numbers to anything. Another rule, I think, for project managers, however crude, however approximate. The middle one, I think, is to say, is there the support for the actions you think you're expected to take at the level which has really the accountability for what it's going to cost? Have I made my 3 points?
Excellent. Once again, the book is called Managing the Urgent and Unexpected.
Yeah.
12 project cases and a commentary. It is published by Gower Publishing. It's about 220 or so pages thick. And of course, written by Stephen Wearne and Keith White Hunt. Stephen, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Cornelius. Glad to talk to you. Thank you.
And that was our interview with Stephen Wearne about managing the urgent and unexpected. If you are PMP certified and want to earn 37 PDUs, or if you're a project manager who wants to become PMI ACP certified, then try the Agile Prepcast. It not only prepares you for your PMI ACP exam, but also qualifies for PMP PDUs. Visit agileprepcast.com for the details. And that's it. Thanks for listening. As always, you can find us on the web at pm-podcast.com. Please send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com. And when you write, please tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. A badly planned project will take 3 times longer than expected, whereas for a well-planned project, it's only twice as long. Until next time.